Hi everyone, this is Arsenal Fan Circle, and have with me three guests here. Hopefully, a few more will jump in. But as always, Mahir Gunded News, welcome in.
Well,
Rohan, thanks for joining us again, Rohan Verdi. You can
thanks, Ray.
see, follow him on Twitter on his handle there below. And Tony Turner, thanks for coming in. As always, Stan may be joining us, and Hopes may be joining us, but wanted to wish everyone a very, very happy Easter and a happy Good Friday also. But wanted to sort of get together as well on this day rather than yesterday. We missed a few people yesterday. Looking for a regular Thursday night podcast. But here we are. Better late than never, right? All right. So we're going to, before we get started, hit that subscribe button if you're new around here. Hit the like button. Would really help the channel as well. We're going to get started with a few topics. First few topics are going to be what will the next transfer window look like? Um, how will agents impact the game after the coronavirus hopefully clears out of here? What will the football landscape look like? Um, how will we get back to football in the summer? I'm thinking at this point, or will the season be voided? We're still kind of waiting. Um, yeah, there's more important things going on in the world right now, but we want to look a little bit forward to the summertime and see what's happening. Have we hit the ceiling in wages? These are all questions we want to dive into now. And then a little bit later, we're going to have a discussion about our most memorable, best, or worst games this season under Unai Emery, which there could be a few of those, Freddie Ljungberg, and Mikel Arteta as well, who is thankfully recovered from coronavirus. So let's kick it off with the first section, and also at the end, we're probably going to open it up to a freestyle question and answer. So if you're in the comment section, put some questions in here for the panel. Mahir, Tony, and Rohan. So let's start off with the first one. Mahir, what do you think the transfer window will look like when we do get back to football?
Okay, so in my personal opinion, I think that the next transfer window will be not a lot of clubs will be spending huge money on players. So like I'm talking about like 100 mil, 120, 150 mil plus. I don't think clubs will be doing that necessarily because I believe the coronavirus will have a huge part to play in the economics of football. So I believe in actually in the next transfer window, we'll be looking at a lot more maybe local players or players coming up from youth
Bless you, Tony.
academies. Bless you,
Tony.
Tony. Yeah. So more players coming from academy players, cheaper alternatives in the Premier League and the Championship, such as let me give you an example for like such as like a Decore, Ndidi, maybe a Grealish, other players that have been established. Maybe a lot more swap deals as well to
Mm-hmm.
bring the total amount being paid for a player down. So, for example, you could do something like, say, for instance, we are going to keep Danny Ceballos, right? And Real Madrid want Aubameyang. So they take Aubameyang, they'll give us Ceballos, they'll give us Luka Jovic plus maybe 20 mil,
Yeah,
which if you ask me in my personal opinion, in my personal opinion as a transfer rumor, I do not want that to happen because Aubameyang is our top striker, one of the best strikers we've ever had at Arsenal, and that's what I think.
yeah. I actually think, and I'm going to come to you next time, Rohan. I can see your facial expressions. I actually think, the economic situation that Mahir has pointed out is very, very true, very, very critical. You're going to have a lot of grassroots football clubs in the lower leagues that are going to go under. They're going to go into administration. They're going to lose money. They won't be able to pay their players. A lot of professional players right now may actually have to go back into the workforce and all of that stuff. Yes, the Premier League clubs should survive, but I think in the higher echelons of the Premier League, we may be looking at a lot more of swap deals and a lot more negotiating going on. So if you think Arsenal have had problems in signing players when times are good, it may actually be difficult this coming window. So without further ado, I'm going to get down to Rohan and see what he's going to say. Rohan?
Yeah, thanks, Ray. So first of all, I think shout out to everyone here who was super vocal last week when we spoke about the furlough that Liverpool had applied, and they've gone
Mm-hmm.
back on that. So, that's one good piece of news from this whole situation, and the pressure seemed to have worked, and we were
Yeah.
part of that pressure. So
Yeah.
that's one. Now, how the transfer window is going to be affected probably will uh, we'll have to take into account whether or not they finish the season. That's one. Or second, if they have to, in case they don't finish the season, then how much losses these clubs and the Premier League itself is going to incur, right? Because they'll have to maybe pay back something
Sponsors.
to the broadcasters, they'll have to pay back to the spectators, etc., which means that that's money lost. If they do end up playing the season, they'll recoup some of that money, which is why that's a very interesting point first to consider in terms of what is going to happen. But in terms of a large effect on football itself, I think this is a good neutralizing factor because at some point football had gone haywire and we were seeing just ridiculous sums of money, stupid money being thrown, and that's just becoming unrealistic now. There's no person. These people are playing football, they are prime athletes, but they're not saving lives really. So nobody is
Yeah.
worth 200 million in reality. That's just what the market can pay them. And I think Barcelona, from my perspective, Barcelona is a big uh, you know reason for this inflation because they seem to be paying stupid money to a lot of people because they can afford it, and because in the La Liga 80% of the revenue from television rights goes to only Real Madrid and Barcelona, unlike how it is in the Premier League. So basically all of these factors will come into play. I don't think that there'll be too many big money transfers because clubs might not have the money, or players moving with big wages because they might not have the money. But this is also an opportunity for clubs to pick up great bargains and great deals because some teams that aren't at the highest level might be forced to sell. And hopefully that's not Arsenal.
Thanks, Rohan. Tony, what do you think? What do you see in the future?
I think it's going to be more of a transfer door than a window, with the leagues probably ending at different times and likely to be open from the 1st of July.
Yeah, Mahir is trying to get you onto the Ozil topic already. Don't worry, we will get probably the Ozil being the highest earner at the club, Mahir. Um, Tony, so um, do you see more and more swap deals coming in the future?
Yeah, I think it's
Or
going to be
will the clubs just continue to act in a reckless manner, forcing the price up and up in the transfer market?
no, I think it's going to be more like the NBA and American sports. You get more swaps plus
More swap,
cash.
yeah, yeah. How can we justify, Mahir? How can we justify the high wages when people are going to be struggling? A lot of people have lost their jobs. Is economy in most countries is going to be ravaged. We may actually go into a worldwide depression in some way, shape, or form. And how can clubs actually justify permanently paying players pre-coronavirus uh, the same wages?
To be honest with you, I heard Ozil's agent saying he said to his client, who is Ozil, do not take a wage cut. Do not take a wage cut. You are owed this money. And now it's brought into question a lot of players. That's why I even put up a sign now saying goodbye Ozil because it's not justified. You
I
justify
saw also. Yeah, I didn't see the goodbye part. I thought you were
sorry,
cheerleading him.
it said bye Ozil. I meant to write get out Ozil now. Like I'm honestly I'm ticked off
Yeah,
because it does not justify after all of this which we are going through for a specific reason that there's a player not willing to help out when people are out there on the front lines saving lives, and you are just out here like, oh no, I'm owed this money. Can I tell you what justifies the wage that you get?
yes,
Your performance on the pitch.
yes,
How many seasons have you performed for us? Look at yourself in the mirror and you tell me how many seasons have you performed for us? How many times have we spoken about this? We don't need to go into this because
yes,
it's been 1 in 8 or 1 in 7.
yes.
So
We
all
we
this
have
all this
we have
BS about I'm owed this money, I'm owed that money. Don't be mad at me. My contract was negotiated by my agent. Just shut up,
yeah.
please.
And Rohan, looking at particular players, Arsenal players, let's say, that are higher paid better than most other players in the squad. Will we be recruiting in a different way because of the impact of the coronavirus and what it has done to the economy moving forward?
So it's not just the coronavirus. I think it's just the general structure of the club that needs to be upgraded. There's a disparity that we've created by paying Özil, 350,000 pounds a week, and then the next highest earner is 150,000, probably less. So, we've created that situation for ourselves, and it's worse. It's made worse by the fact that Özil does not perform. If he did perform head and shoulders above everyone else, there could be a justification, but there's just no justification right now. So that needs fixing. There's been this big debate of how we need to manage it, and but we've got the fifth highest wage bill in the Premier League. So we're not really in the Champions League wage budget or bucket, in my opinion. But we have to sort of get some parity there. But I think that we should not go the Tottenham way also, where I feel, not paying people enough for what the market can pay them, because that's just going to lead us to players going away more and more. So I think a good solution would be to start having incentives in contracts more. So there is a base wage that everybody makes, an average wage, and then you have more and more incentives, your goal incentive, clean sheet incentive, assist incentive, number of minutes that you play in a season, etc., etc. And that's how we sort of normalize this.
Yeah, thanks, Rohan. It's also nice to see our regulars coming in. Noe, I'm glad to see now more than ever. I'm glad to see people checking in with us in the comment section.
Of
It lets
course.
us know that hopefully you're okay, everybody's safe, and be safe out there. That's basically the message. Don't let your guard down. Don't let your caution down. So Noe, it's good to hear from you once again. Thanks for being there, brother. Um, so Tony, following on from what um, Rohan said, we've got Raul and Vinay in place now for 2 seasons at most, right? The guts
Yeah,
of 2 seasons here,
me
and
too this summer.
they've promised a lot. And you know, transfer wise, you can argue whether they've actually spent correctly or not, but they have gone out and spent money. Now, the next question we're going to ask of Raul and Vinay, and we would have been asking this question anyway, is to deal with the contracts that are going to run down in the next year or 18 months. But do you think, looking at contracts, does Raul and Vinay actually need to work harder after this coronavirus passes through? Is it going to impact their work more or less?
I think it's going to be about the same, but they'll probably be looking more to shift players for swap deals that have 12 to 18 months left.
Is it going to make, Tony, do you think it's going to make this new environment where we're probably going to be working in, the clubs are going to be working in, will it make it more difficult for them to engineer these deals?
I think it depends when the different leagues end or if they end up finishing their season. It's kind of still hard to say at this point.
Yeah, I actually think, Rowan, I actually think it's going to be make it more difficult for them to do their job to hold players to their contracts if they're not going to sign a contract to potentially move them on, Rowan.
Yeah, I think that's what they have to do. It's imperative, and this time I think for Arsenal it's more important what we ship out than what we bring in.
Yeah, I know Ryan, Arse Bros, Ryan has been more excited about, he's been on the podcast before, and he's been more excited about who we're actually going to ship out rather than who we're going to bring in this
Correct.
window coming up. So Arsenal was always going to have the difficult summer to try and move some players on. I mean, not to pick on Ozil, but did everyone maybe feel this was his last season anyway, or was he going to play out the next season?
I
Play
thought
out
he
I
the
was going
think
to
next
he's
play
going.
out.
season.
Yeah, yeah. Why would he leave? There is no
Why?
reason for him to leave when he can make that sort of money, right?
Even if he's
Mhm.
So
sitting on the bench,
unless
not being used, right,
right.
Rowan?
Yeah, exactly. He'd rather be sitting on the bench. He knows that after this is done, he can probably, go to the MLS or something and earn a lot of money there, which is why we have to be resigned to the fact that he is going to earn the same money that he is earning. But the option is that we pick up majority of the tab and we ship him out to some place which pays a part of his wage. Even if we get one third of his wage out of our books, that's still going to be enough for one decent player coming in.
Do I think Tony had put this out on Twitter? You did a vote about how long the next transfer window should be, Tony, and you got mixed results, right?
He has 50% saying that it should still be a short window and 48 saying it should be open until the end of December.
So pretty close. I mean, it's. I think that it will stay to 1 month, but it's going to be a very very busy month now. The pressure, unfortunately for Euro and the pressure of the Euro 2020s is not going to impact the transfer window this summer. So when and if it does open up, it's going to feel more like an off-season transfer window with no pressure really to get things done quickly, Rowan.
Yeah, but I'm a big advocate and always have been of the fact that the transfer window should close before the first match is played
Yeah,
because that gives an unfair advantage to other teams when you can bring in players or you can sell players, right?
yeah.
So, I would want that to continue, but I think that was scrapped anyway because last season it was done, but European transfer window is still open until 1st of September generally, which is what it used to be with the Premier League. But I'm not a big fan of that.
Yeah. So Mahir, I think we already maybe touched on this, but have we hit the wage ceiling worldwide? I mean, I think Rohan mentioned Barcelona and those types of teams. Worldwide, they're probably always going to spend a huge amount of money. Manchester City will probably will pay again. They haven't paid a lot of money in recent seasons, but how do you see the Premiership going, Mahir?
Well, even with other teams, Banta FC, for example, they are spending millions upon millions. So maybe this crisis is a good thing. It slows life down. I mean, even in terms of life, even now in terms of football, because the spending in the next transfer window can't be as high. You know that they're gonna need to cut down wages as well in order for a lot of teams to survive, just survive this and get through it. Stan.
Hey, Stan.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. Sorry for my late arrival.
It's
Just had
okay.
some technology problems.
Yeah, you were here on time. You just had some technical issues.
Yeah.
Exactly.
All good.
So how's everybody?
We are all doing well, right?
Good.
We have a few people in the comments section, so it's always Stan. It's nice to have people drop in and just to let you know that they're doing okay, and now more than ever, right?
Exactly. So what have I missed today?
Yeah, you're gonna have about 5 minutes all to yourself here because we've been sharing the time, and so basically we've been talking about have we hit the wage ceiling worldwide, and what will the next transfer window, whenever that comes around, look like post coronavirus? How will clubs deal with getting players in and out?
I put a tweet out yesterday that I think some of you saw, and it was a simple question, and it was, let's say, for example, look, the average wage of a Premier League footballer, as I understand it, I heard these stats just last week, is £64,000 a week. Now, there's obviously going to be a few players that are going to be a long way under that. For example, I know one of the Longstaff brothers at Newcastle is on around about £8,000 to £10,000 a week. But the average wage is £64,000 a week. Now, let's say that the FA decided to put a cap in and said, right, or let's say World Football, the football governing body, FIFA, they turned around and said, no footballer is allowed to be paid any more than £20,000 a week. Do you think, let's say, for example, you're a footballer and you're earning 90 grand a week, 120 grand a week, and this rule came in, how many footballers do you think would look at that and go, stuff that, quit playing football and get a job working 9 to 5 in a butcher's, a baker's, or a candlestick maker's? They will still continue to play football. Football wouldn't cease to exist. People just wouldn't say, I'm not earning 20 grand a week. They wouldn't turn their nose up at that.
No,
They would
20
play the game.
grand a week is still, you would earn it in a month what most people probably earn a year again.
Yeah.
So it would be 12 times the amount of a normal job.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And also, within that, you could also incorporate a ceiling for how much you can actually sell a player for as well. So you don't get any more of these Neymar deals going on. You don't get any more of these Virgil van Dijk deals going on. And perhaps you have a central hub so that when you want to make a transfer, maybe like you have a department that's created within FIFA or the FA, whatever league you're talking about. And you say, okay, we're Arsenal and we want to buy player X who's playing at Newcastle. You submit all of that paperwork to this independent central hub, and then they're then left to take in your paperwork and then submit that to Newcastle. And they're the people in the middle that will, help the transfer to go through and get rid of agents.
Yeah.
Get rid of these agents. Get rid of these agents. When you look at some of these deals that go down for, I think it was like the Neymar deal. How much did Neymar's dad get out of that deal? He got more than the selling club. I think it was Neymar. I'm sure it was Neymar.
Yeah,
it was a Brazilian. But they actually, the father who was acting as an agent, pocketed more than the actual club that was selling the player, that had the player on their books from youth, gave them the platform to show their wares. They got less than the father who was acting as a middleman, as an agent. There's a way to do this. I suppose it's like, whether you privatize something or you have the government own it. And at the moment, football is privatized. I think,
Yeah.
and it needs to be, have the governing body needs to have more of a jurisdiction over it. And I think players should have a cap. And I just picked that figure out of thin air, £20,000 a week. I'm sure everybody here on the panel and everybody that's in our chat box would love to wake up tomorrow morning and find that they're now earning £20,000 a week. I know I would.
Oh, I'd
Yeah.
die.
I
I'd
know I
literally
would.
die.
And just to piggyback off of this, as we're talking about the current climate, and this is all leading into morals. Should clubs be taking a line? Should players be doing it individually? I read a story yesterday that was an interview with Mesut Ozil's agent,
Yeah.
Dr. Ergut Sugut. You know this guy?
Yeah.
And basically, and I don't want to paraphrase this one, so I'll just tell you I'll read it directly from, because I've got it right here. And it's not nice. So basically the headline is, Mesut Ozil, agent of £350,000 a week, Mesut Ozil tells players not to accept wage cuts amid coronavirus crisis as he takes aim at politicians and accuses owners of running clubs like a PlayStation game. So this is the kind of advice that these people are giving to players, and everybody knows my feelings on Mesut Ozil. But when I see stories like this, he's telling players not to accept any form of wage cut during the crisis. He's saying that, well, what I would suggest is, because we don't know what's going on, that the payments are deferred, but deferred in full. So even if that means in 4 or 5 months' time that they get nothing now, 4 or 5 months' time, you reimburse the players, they get everything. And I think this is a bad look, because we all know that Mesut Ozil has a PR department. On social media, nothing gets said about Mesut Ozil from his side of the camp unless his eyes have gone over it first. Because that's what he has this PR team for, right? Everything on social media is very carefully done by his people. So I find it difficult to believe that this story would have gone out in the Daily Mail without Mesut Ozil being aware that this was going to take place.
Exactly.
Shout out to Ljungberg Camp. Thanks for joining us once again. Arsenal have the most overpaid players. Ox took a pay cut to join Liverpool, and he still earns more than Mane. And that leads me into kind of what Stan has just been saying as well. So it's a whole PR thing. We've already talked with Rohan a little bit about Liverpool and their decision last week. We talked about to furlough their employees, and they had to walk that back. And like Stan said, it's a bad look for agents now to be talking like this in a crisis where average people are hurting financially and emotionally. They're losing people. And to talk about we're not going to accept lower wages is a little bit out of touch with the general public who actually fund a lot of this game for these players. So who wants to jump in there on that point, Rohan?
I just say quickly as well, I would find this a little bit more palatable if this was, say, a representative of a youth player, who may not be earning vast sums of money, right? But remember, this is the representative of the highest paid footballer in the Premier League. And this is the message that's being sent out. So if anyone wants to jump in on that.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I think that, it was first of all very surprising when I read what Ozil's agent's comments were, because Ozil generally has a very good PR team. Even when his contract was running down along with Sanchez, Sanchez kept saying, things that were pissing Arsenal fans off, but Ozil was saying all the right things. I love the club, I want to be here, and nobody was getting on Ozil's back, although Ozil was in the same situation, not signing the deal and holding the club at ransom. And now for him to come out and say this was a little surprising for me, really. And of course, it's unacceptable. and that's one. And second is, I completely agree. The the youth players or anybody who earns below an average should not be given a wage cut. So I don't accept the fact that everybody takes a 70% wage cut or a 30% wage cut or something like that. You cut 70% of the wages of Saka and he'll be like earning £1,000 a week or something like that.
Yeah,
He'll
yeah,
himself require some aid from the state or
yeah. We
something.
talked about a sliding
So
scale last week.
exactly. So anybody who earns over the average, you bring it down. And for the long term, there should be some sort of wage cap. And then beyond that, people are given only incentives based on how they perform. I think that will increase the desire also in players,
I was
right? To
just gonna
want to
say,
play, to want to
Rowan,
perform. Yeah.
I was just gonna
Go ahead.
say now, I love that point that you brought up, that analysis, because I was just thinking, would that not increase their desire to play better
Of course.
so they can earn a little bit more, like almost like an incentive, like, okay, everybody's on the same grounds, 50,000. But if you're gonna play well, we can possibly give you 70 or 80. I
Yeah.
mean, that's
Exactly.
actually fantastic.
It's like all sales in any company works, right? You have a base salary, and then beyond that you earn on incentives, and that is why
On the
people are so
games.
aggressive to win deals, right? That's
Yeah,
essentially
of
how
course.
the corporate world works. And if
Stable.
this
Yeah.
is a business, it should be run completely like a business.
I just
Yeah,
want to say there to what Lundkamp puts up there. I agree with that. I mean, what I'm saying is that how I would like to see this play out, and I'm talking about the bubble around football clubs, a bubble around the Premier League, is that clubs like Chelsea, clubs like Liverpool, clubs like Arsenal, which aren't on the breadline, I'd like to see these clubs just continuing as normal. Clubs like Tottenham. And what I mean by that is, okay, there's no football matches being played, but I want to see everybody still kept on the payroll. Yeah. When I mean people kept on the payroll, I'm talking about all of the people behind the scenes, whether you work in the kitchens, whether you're a groundsman, whether your job is to do the laundry. Yeah, the players can look after themselves. But I would just like to see business continue as normal, and clubs can afford to do that. With regards to helping the NHS, then that should be taken separately. They could say, okay, the club, we're ticking over normally. We're not going to go to the government and we're not going to ask to put an extra stress on the health package that's being given. We're not going to try and exploit the loophole by saying, well, we can only afford to pay our staff 80%. Government, can you top that up with the other 20%? Don't worry, because we're continuing to pay all of our staff a 100% as if business is continuing. But to do a little bit for the community, and every community has a branch of the NHS, what we've done is we would like to make a donation. And whether that donation comes directly from the club, whether it comes solely from the owner, who's not short of a few bob, whether it's something that the players do and they say, okay, let's say, for example, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang stands up and he says, well, look, on top of my salary, I actually get paid a goal bonus of £45,000 a week. So what I'd like to do, I'd like to, the goal bonus that I've accrued so far for this season, don't pay that to me. Put that in the pool that we're going to put together for the NHS. And maybe other players can do similar things. That pool, you could then probably, all that money that you would have collected in, whether it's 50 grand, 100 grand or 200 grand, I don't know. But whatever you're going to use as this donation, label that bank account as a company name and then make it as a charitable donation to your local council or your local branch of the NHS. And by doing that, if you've got an accountant, they'd probably be able to get a lot of that back, as it's a charitable thing through tax write-offs, and they'll probably get a high portion of it back. There's ways that this can be done creatively so that the loophole isn't exploited by clubs, which is what Tottenham is doing, and that we do something to try and help an NHS, which is having difficulties with coping with the current problem.
Yeah. And that was a unique question from Lumber Account that I actually had not considered as well, but thanks for tackling that, Sam. Hi, Indian Gunner, thanks for joining us, but why should wage cuts be equal? Should they not be based on a sliding scale. For me, I don't think wages aren't equal, so why should wage cuts be equal? I disagree with that, Indian Gunner. I think if somebody like Aubameyang, Lacazette, Mustafi, or Ozil are paying are getting paid the most amount of money, they should surely have to pay a little bit higher in taxes. So someone like Saka will not be penalized.
Do you want to know?
Yeah,
Do you
since he's
guys want to
only
know
on
something I
3,000 a
picked up
week.
on? Exactly. Do you guys want to know something I picked on actually? Now that we're talking about wages and the desire that maybe a wage cut will produce, I was just thinking about the whole Ozil and Sanchez situation where Sanchez was, I mean, he was deserved of a much higher wage than he was at. And then once Ozil managed to get his contract, and then Sanchez became a flop. And look what happened to Ozil. I mean, they can't literally be playing aside from each other. They can't be playing in separate teams. So yeah, the whole desire over the more desire over when a wage cut happens, that could actually be possibly be something very realistic.
Yeah, and I think this is a genuine concern from players that, knowing how the owners are, your Daniel Levy and your Kroenkes of the world, that the money gets pocketed. And there's a very simple way, like Stan said, to tackle that, and that's to just create an escrow account. Everything is transparent. These are corporations. Whatever money gets deducted goes into that escrow account. You know how much money has been used to pay the staff. Out of that, whatever is left, maybe you give to the NHS, and then that's that, or your local community or wherever. The players get to decide how that goes, and they'll still survive at the end of it. uh, that's an easy way to do it. That's what the Premier League should say. It doesn't go to the owner, and it's not on the owner's discretion, but it's an escrow that has been created, and everybody has to sort of pay money into that.
I mean, we have already, I believe Arsenal has already paid a sum of about £100,000 already towards the NHS. So they've already done, they've already sort of, made a contribution. And I understand that they've helped with laying on free transport for key workers. So on the NHS side, they haven't totally ignored it. Maybe a little bit more could be done. I suppose that's a conversation for another time. But regarding the players, I mean, there's two things here. Should footballers be capped? I think that it can be done, and it should be that if you've got two strikers, they're both earning, let's say, £8 grand a week, but striker A is a much better striker than striker B. We even earn the same amount of money, but striker A, because of him being a better player, he should be playing at a better club, which then should make sure that striker A has more chance of winning trophies and titles, which is what it's all about, right?
Yeah.
So,
Exactly.
if you have an end cap of, I'm just using the figure £20,000, you could have a bottom cap where you say, and no football player is allowed to earn any less than £500 a week. So there's your gauge, and you've got to then, when you're taking, obviously you bring someone from the youth academy, they're going to be at that lower end of the scale. If that guy's with you for a year and a half and you want to give him a contract increase because he's supplying the goods, then he's no longer going to be on 500 quid. Maybe he'll get a raise to £2 grand, and so forth. Your people's like your Aubameyangs of this world, maybe they'd be on the higher end there. Maybe they'd be on that 20 grand, So there is a way that it can be. There is a way that it can be done, and it all goes back to that original statement that I made. If a football cap was implemented tomorrow, football would still continue. You would not see a mass walkout of footballers hanging up their boots to go and get a 9 to 5 working down at the supermarket. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah, Tony, I think we've been looking at football the last 20, 30 years and knowing that this day would come. And Tony, are you there? He may be frozen.
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Okay. Knowing that this day would come, that we would eventually hit this bubble where it becomes unsustainable, that we're paying such high wages. and now we got into the 350 pound zone. Is there any other player to the rest of you guys? Is there any other player in the Premier League that's getting paid more than 350?
I don't think so on a
I mean,
straight.
Sanchez.
Sanchez still gets paid
Yeah, I think
500,000, right?
500.
Well,
Will that be it?
his wage is now made up, isn't it, of two parts? But his was around about. It wasn't quite 500,000. It was about 400 or something like that. But I mean, he's not playing in this league. I think the next one down from Ozil is KDB.
KDB.
Yeah, he's the next.
KDB, Pogba.
Right.
Wow. Lumber camp. So we do overpay all of our non-performing players, crap players who would never earn that elsewhere. Someone needs to sort it out.
That's an excellent point because look at Socrates. What is he being paid now? Is it 120? 100?
Yeah.
120?
120.
How much was he being paid at the club that we got him from?
Dortmund,
40?
yeah, like maybe 50.
So he went from 140 to 120. I mean, how does that? I mean, that's madness.
That is madness. That's an increase of what? 70, 80 grand, no?
Madness. I bet you couldn't believe it when he put the phone down from his agent. I bet he was like, put the phone down and was like,
So Stan, just to bring you full circle, another question I asked before you came on, Stan, was should Raul and Vinay work a little bit or need to work a little bit harder post coronavirus and what it's going to do to the economy? Is this a gateway to paying players less wages post coronavirus? Not necessarily an excuse, but an economic factor.
but how can you do that if you've still got a player on your books at 350 grand a week? I don't know. You
never get yourself into that situation again.
Until that is sorted out and that's gone, that's always going to be hanging over us.
Yeah,
and it's going to be like a beacon off in the distance that other players are always going to see. I want to get closer to that. I need to get closer to that 350 grand. You know.
And Rohan, I think it would be redundant to ask Stan if Ozil's going to take up his final year in the contract.
He is. He put that story out just a few weeks ago, right? He said the same guy that made his financial guy, Dr. Sogut. He said he's not going anywhere. He's seeing it out. That was always the plan.
Tony,
striker deal. Get at least. Let's pay 250 grand for him a week and get a club to pay 100 grand for him a week. That's enough for one decent player.
I'm sure for 3 seasons now, Rohan, we've tried striking deals. Maybe 3 windows, maybe not 3 seasons, but we've tried probably every avenue open to us to move Ozil on, right?
It just doesn't.
I'm not sure. I think there are teams that would still pay Ozil like 100,000 a week or something like that. I mean, he's loved in Turkey and stuff. You know, he'll be a superstar there. He can. There will, if they're thinking in those terms, then they could get it. You know, and that's not a position that we necessarily need a superstar, right? I think their thinking is also clouded by the fact that if Ozil goes, they need to get a superstar in, but that's not required in this position now anymore.
Yeah, we really got ourselves snookered by the whole Sanchez Ozil thing a few years ago.
Why is any club in Turkey going to pay anything, even if it's a loan deal, like Rohan said, and they could say, okay, we'll give you 100 grand a week? Why would they do that when they know that in a year's time they can get him for free? And I think that's always been the plan. That this is kind of like Ozil's retirement fund. And once that, I always said he will wind the contract down to the very end. He will leave on a free to a club in Turkey and he'll get a nice wage there because there's been no transfer fee, probably throwing a lovely house in a lovely part of the country, and he'll have a cushy life.
Wouldn't that be, Stan, would that not be the ultimate slap in the face to not allow the club have any kind of residual payment back from his transfer?
But knowing him, as it gets nearer that time, there'll be some kind of unrest so that he can justify it by flouncing out because it's going to end in an acrimonious way. Do you know what I mean? And he would have his side of it saying, well, we said we were going to do this and they didn't honour that and this and that and this and that. So I just went off to Turkey. And we won't get a penny from Mesut Ozil. We won't get a penny back on that 42 million that we spent.
Disgraceful. That is a disgraceful mentality to have.
So I want to ask a question now. That do you think that football has changed so much that I remember that Sir Alex at one point would tell players to leave and they would have to go. He would create a situation in which they would have to go. He would already strike a deal and tell them that you are off. There was no negotiation that I'm going to stay there once he said that. Now, has football changed so much that the club does not have the power to isolate them? If he were indeed trying to do that for 2 seasons, we could have put him with the reserves or done something like that. I know that's not, that's just an avenue of
our
doing it.
management,
but has football really changed that much?
Our management is so soft. We have a bunch of softies. They, like you just said, Ferguson was a legendary coach. He could tell players, listen here, I've already struck up a deal before you can even turn your head. I've already struck up a deal with an Inter Milan, a Real Madrid, whatever. You are off. I've already sold you. It's done. And you'd have to accept it. Wenger was a yes man. A yes man that answered to the likes of Stan Kroenkes and the Gazides of the world. And he was a softie. We loved him, but he was an absolute softie. He could not do that. And in today's time, this is exactly what's happening. Player power is overruling everything else. If a player doesn't want to move, he's happy to sit. Who wouldn't be happy to sit on a bench? You're like, oh, you're underperforming, so you'd have to sit on the bench. But I'm running out my contract. I'm earning 300,000 for sitting on the bench. Living a cushy life.
I'll tell you how I answer that question, Rohan, and that is Squadron Mustafi. As I understand it, he's been sat down and told twice by the club his services are no longer required, and it's best that he finds a new home. And the guy's still hanging around like a bad smell.
But the club keeps making a U-turn on that, right? Like they release videos of him on the official website that he's now, that the pressure was a lot, etc., etc. That was a way for the club to say that test the waters. Is he acceptable or not? Every time we try to do something, the club, makes a U-turn. But there is no firm direction that we will go this way, because an employer, any employer, our employer, can create a situation where an individual cannot stand against the institution. It's possible.
So, Tony, can we have this conversation that we've been talking about on Twitter with regards to Alexis Sanchez? Can we have this conversation and tie it all together in conjunction with what my hero has been saying? The club has been too soft, and then bring it full circle and say the club has been poorly run in the last decade. And there's no sign really of the club being cutthroat in terms of moving players on, Stan.
I mean, listen, like what my hero was saying about Sir Alex Ferguson. If this was like Alex Ferguson and he was like Mustafi would wake up one morning, open his curtains, and Alex Ferguson would be standing outside his house with a taxi, with all of Mustafi's luggage already in the boot,
and have him in a shipping container,
keeping the car
just waving him off. But that's just not the Arsenal way. It's the players seem to be leading all of these kind of conversations. It always seems to be we always seem to struggle with getting players as well to re-sign contracts. It always seems that we're beholden to the players. We're even being beholden to a young player in Saka. I mean, he's a kid. And, he's dictating the shots. He should be eager. Like what Paul Merson and Tony Adams used to say. Tony Adams used to say, they put the contract in front of me and I'd just sign it. I wouldn't even sit there reading through it. I was just grateful that the club still wanted me. They they see
That's how much love. That was
My
love.
my first Arsenal manager was George Graham. Do you think he would stand for that kind of stuff going
Nah.
on? Have times changed, or have we just gotten a little bit soft in the last 20, 30 years? And Tony, let's dive into this, Tony. So last week we talked about the all-time Arsenal 11, and Lumberg Camp, who's in the comment section right now, rightly he pointed out Alexis Sanchez, which I think, to be fair, most of us um, overlooked Alexis Sanchez. Okay, but with hindsight, I'm thinking we probably could have found a spot for Alexis Sanchez in the all-time team. Now, whether it's on the left side or the right side doesn't really matter. We can have that discussion as well. But I like was here's my point of view, everyone, and then we can just dive into the rest of the panel. Alexis Sanchez was a player more ambitious than the club allowed him to be. I'm just going to put that out there, and we can talk about that. Tony, you want to go?
Yeah, I'll start. I think we should have still sold Sanchez and Oswald both at the same time. Right now, he's getting paid $500,000 a week, and he's scored 4 goals since he's left. So
Rohan?
See, I mean, I understand the club's position then, right? Like these were our two main superstars, Sanchez and Ozil. And if both of them had left in the same transfer window, there would have been mutiny, right? Nobody could have. I see. In
I
hindsight, now
accept
you
what
can
you're
say.
saying.
In
I accept
hindsight, we can say that Sanchez has not performed and Ozil has not performed, but this is we're talking some time ago when both of them were performing, and I think most Arsenal fans would have really wanted Sanchez to stay. You know, everybody said that we understand that he wants to go because he's better than what we are offering him. Nobody said that, yeah, he's a piece of crap and we should let him leave. Yeah, I don't remember any Arsenal fan saying that. Now, in hindsight, we say that that's the situation, right? In hindsight, of course, we should have sold both of them. But in that situation, I understand that the club had to keep one of them, and unfortunately, we kept the worst one out of both of them.
Yeah,
We
but
were sort of
yeah.
held ransom. But whether we can make a case or not, again, like there's this line, right? That there are lies, there are damned lies, and there are stats. So stats are always used for your advantage, that when he has left, he has scored 5 goals in whatever time. Before his time, he had scored. There are so many things that still count. There are so many factors to it that you can't really just play a single thought process into it. You could say that Thierry Henry, if you just look at his stats from when he was at Juventus or something, like before he came to
Yeah.
Arsenal, he was a flop there. So you could say that he's a flop. So
And
you can't
Bergkamp
take a
also.
piecemeal approach. It is where how he's performed here, right?
Yeah.
And Sanchez, it's hard numbers. You can't argue with the numbers. He scored more goals than Ljungberg in 5.5 less seasons. He has scored in most important matches, be it FA Cups, be it against big rivals, against Tottenham, against Liverpool, against Man City, against United. Again and again, he used to score. He's given us, what would we give to have a midfielder who would consistently score about 15 goals a season right
Oh,
now?
I'm gonna give
Anybody apart from Aubameyang.
I'm gonna give Tony.
And his tenacity of going back, chasing the ball, etc., etc. We've overlooked him, but once I look at the stats, it was absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I'm gonna give Tony the chance to reply to this, and then we're gonna get into the mentality of the team in the last 5 or 10 years with Alexis Sanchez in it. Tony.
And I think he neglects the whole what he did off the field and how unsettled he had all the different players. He tons and tons and tons of stories about what he did off the field to unsettle the team.
Yeah.
Him and
So,
Ozil both.
yeah. So Stan, I'm gonna go to Mahir and Stan. Then you got a few more things to say, Tony, and then we're gonna talk this over, Stan and Mahir.
You can go ahead and go to my here.
So Mahir and Stan, Rohan has pointed out the hard facts that Alexis Sanchez was a good player for us for a couple of seasons, right? But he's tailed off and not scored very many goals for Manchester United and Inter Milan. Tony is pointing out that the mentality, the upset that Alexis Sanchez caused in the dressing room was detrimental to the team. And Rohan just wants to put another thing in.
Yeah, so on that thing, right? That I am nowhere denying that he was a moody bitch, right? He was.
Yes, but
So,
was it a
that
bad
that is
thing?
undisputed. But
Was that a bad thing for the team,
we're
Rohan?
making a hypothetical team based on the performances on the pitch and what their contribution has been in terms of numbers and statistics and what the team around them was. And I don't think anybody really, when he wanted to leave, the real issue was that he chose United over City. If he would have gone to City, I don't think people were as concerned because they knew that he was going to a better team. And everybody was like, he is better than most of the other players. And I do not accept for 1 minute that the tantrums that he has thrown, but I don't think the situation would have been the same if he was in that team where the 11
No,
that we have chosen. He wouldn't have the stature.
no.
He's like a small guy. Like, Vieira or Adams would have just picked him up and put him in a spot, literally. So,
Put him in the bun.
Okay, Stan, are you kind of getting the gist of the argument here?
Yeah, I mean, it all depends which Alexis Sanchez are we talking about? He was with us for 4
Well,
seasons.
the one a few years ago when he was prolific.
Yeah, I mean, this all stemmed from him not being in the Arsenal 11 thing that we did, and very much not talked about. But it all depends how is everybody on the panel choosing the players? Are you purely just looking at what they did as a footballer, as in their assists, their goals, their clean sheets, or are you looking at the whole package? Whether you actually
I
warmed to
think
that.
I think
Whether you warmed their
Whole
Tony,
package.
Tony was looking at the whole package in terms of the mentality of the team and
Me
the
too.
integration of the team, and my here too. I think
As a whole.
myself, Rohan, and you, Stan, were looking at pure numbers.
No, I was looking at the whole deal. I was looking at not just the numbers. I was looking at the personality and everything. So it seemed that the majority was looking at the whole package. And if you look at the whole package, there's a very good reason why you wouldn't choose someone like Alexis Sanchez. I mean, the Alexis Sanchez that we had for the first couple of seasons was majestic to watch.
Magical.
Majestic. You're talking about where we're under the cosh and you're not sure what that we're going to get any kind of a result, and he could pull it out the bag out of nothing. Very few players can do that single-handedly. Dictate a game, and he could do that. But we saw the worst side of him, and especially that last season. You could even maybe say the last season and a half. He was rubbish. He was a shadow of his former self. Not only did he have a bad attitude, he wasn't producing on the pitch. And we all thought, well, he's not producing on the pitch because he's unhappy. He no longer wants to be with Arsenal for whatever reason. He believes he's got bigger ambitions. And until he gets to the club with bigger ambitions, we'll probably never, ever get to see, the real Alexis Sanchez again. But he engineered the move. Yeah. He got the move that he wanted. No one forced him to go to Man United. He obviously got the money and a financial reward that him and his agents believed that he was worth. And his form is so bad. He's terrible. Look at the numbers he put up for Man United. The way he played, he was playing at United, just a continuation, an extension of how he was playing for us at the end. And he got everything that he wanted. He got the move, he got the money. So what is his problem? What
Yeah,
is, you know, and is he done as a footballer? Is he just done as a footballer? As
I think
Torres,
American players will just run and run and run until they're done, and they don't last throughout their career. He did a lot of football as well for his country as well. We have to recognize that as well. But Ljungberg Kemp makes a great point here. A thing that epitomized the mentality of Arsenal players was when Ballerina said that Alexi wanted to win too badly and it was too much. So, Stan, can I put it to you? Should we have had 11 Alexis and
no,
not
no.
10 Bellerin and one Alexi?
You can sometimes, you know, it's like being a perfectionist, right? Or a director on a movie who's a perfectionist and is making you do this one scene and is making you do it over and over and over and over. And yeah, the actor obviously wants to win an Oscar, but sometimes you can just go too much. And if Alexi is the sort of person where the game hasn't gone good, and then you go back to regroup as a team, and he won't integrate, he's pointing fingers and constantly blaming everybody else. You know, maybe having tantrums and kicking things and turning up late for meetings where they want to discuss tactics because he's pissed off. Then that's no good. You know, because football is a team game. And even if you are playing well and you're being let down by your teammates because they're going through some bad form, then you should be there for them, right? They're still turning up on time.
Let me
You know,
get you.
the players that aren't doing so well and are getting, you know, maybe their fingers pointed at, they're still turning up on time. They're still training. They're still trying hard in every game, right, to get themselves out of it. So you can't have a prima donna going, oh, you lot are rubbish. You're not up to my standard. Oh, you know, it doesn't work like that. It's a team game.
Okay. Mahir, I'm going to get to you in a second, but I want to take Ljungberg Kemp's point here. And this probably ties into last week's podcast. And Ljungberg Kemp, you've made me think a lot throughout the week. Did we overlook Alexi? Now, I picked Ljungberg on the right hand side because I didn't consider Alexi Sanchez on the right hand side. I didn't consider Perez on the right hand side. So for me, Ljungberg got that spot on the right hand side. You've since made me think Alexi Sanchez or Perez, who was better? And yes, we were playing a 4-4-2 system, right? But there is a debate whether Alexi Sanchez was better than Perez or not at his peak. Mahir, your point?
Okay, I've got about three main points. Yes, Alexis was a very majestic player. Did break our hearts when he left, especially that he went to flippin' Banta FC of all clubs. The backlash definitely wouldn't have been
It was
anywhere
kind of
near
funny though
this.
to watch him struggle at
Yeah,
that.
it was. It was hilarious. It's like watching. It was like watching the circus, but like live every time, same place, same channel. Um, One thing I did notice is like Lumbercamp did just say, Bellerina did say he was finding
Wanted to win
it.
too badly.
He wanted it really badly, but we couldn't build a team around him as per se. It's management also. It's where you've got money to spend, you don't spend it, the opportunities there and the opportunities gone to sign coaches and players, to build with somebody of Alexis's quality. That last few years of Alexis was a joke. It was seriously a joke. I even said, as another point, I said dishonorable mention Alexis Sanchez on the right hand side. I didn't even have uh, not even a thought of him putting him in an all-time 11. I said dishonorable mention because it
Yeah.
just popped into me and I was like, oh yeah, Alexis was around. So yeah, he did. He was a very good player, majestic first few seasons. After that, threw his toys out the pram. And it's been really funny ever since to see how much he's fallen. And it's just a pity at that time it wasn't maybe and gotten rid of an Ozil instead of an Alexis.
Mhm.
And then Alexis would have seen maybe that we've got ambition and he would have kicked on.
So,
Maybe he could have still been with
so
us. I don't know.
Rohan will know that I can be convinced. I can be turned around. Rohan has turned me around on a couple of things. But Rohan, Mahir and Tony have kind of turned me around a little bit just now.
Don't be,
An
don't be.
all-time, no, to be in an all-time 11, doesn't your character have to come into play as well?
Definitely it does. So I still stand by our point that Lumberg and Perez would probably be there because of the overall package that they had.
Hmm.
And to Stan's point, of course, even I have considered not just cold hard stats, but the overall package. But that overall package is limited to their time at Arsenal. So I have not considered that Vieira, after leaving Arsenal, was not as great as he was at Arsenal,
Sure.
or somebody else was better or worse before or after Arsenal. That's one. Second is, I think there is a recency bias here, and it's a negative one in this case. Because do we all agree that Alexis, not just in his last half season, but he was worse the season before that also? That's what I think everybody had said here. But I have the stats here. In the season before that, in 16-17, which was his last full season, he scored 24 goals in the Premier League. He wasn't a flop in his penultimate season. Actually, he was the
Final
highest scorer
match.
for our club. He 50% of his goals came only in that season.
He was
In his
primarily
last
used as a striker that year too, instead of a
how
winger.
does it matter? How does it matter? Which striker is scoring 24 goals now? He's a striker, which was not even his
He
position,
was
which is
converted
not
to be
even
a
his correct
striker.
position. Right?
Yeah.
It's not his fault that he's being played as a striker. In fact, I always thought that he played better when he was not being played as a striker. So I could even argue that he was being played out of position. Right?
Didn't he
Now,
have his best season when he was playing up front? He had his
Yep.
best season.
and then in his last half season that he played 19 games and he scored 7 goals then, which is as much as our second highest scorer today in this season, where we are very happy with that sort of return. you
He
know
would
Yeah.
be
so
pretty good in his present team with those stats. Yes.
But there was no
so
harmony. There was no harmony. The body language was terrible.
correct,
Yeah.
exactly. And now this is a brilliant question that Ray asked, which was, would you have 11 Alexis Sanchez's in your team or 11 Bellerians? Because I think, and this is my opinion, a couple of weeks ago we talked about this thing, right? That one day before the game with Manchester United, uh, Patrick Vieira went into a super hard tackle, and everybody raised their game by 80% in the thing, in the training.
Yes.
If
That's
Patrick
probably
Vieira did the same thing in this dressing room, everybody would hate Patrick Vieira. That's because nobody had character in this team. And you can't blame the people who have character. His methods were wrong, but
yeah.
I don't think his intent was wrong. Most of these people who leave for, Cesc Fabregas also came back and said that I have left because 2-3 players were at my level. Would you rather have someone just slyly go away, or someone who actually makes themselves unpopular by telling their colleagues that they're just not good enough?
Yeah.
And again, I'm saying that I do not support or condone the way he behaved, but there's a recency bias
Okay.
wherein we think that he's played worse than he did.
Okay, Stan. So the question is, we played at a high level in the years of the Invincibles, where Alexis Sanchez he could have fitted in because they had the mentality to win. He would have been comfortable in that environment. And we have let our standards slip in the last 15 years, so much so that when a winner comes to Arsenal, he sort of looks around and says in the dressing room, these players do not have the winning mentality that I have. And do we blame Alexis Sanchez for that, or do we blame the management and the players that have become cushy over those years?
So does he feel the same way? Does he feel the same way at United, and does he feel the same way at Inter Milan? Because ever since he got into that funk in that last season, he ain't come out of it, no matter where he's been.
Yeah.
So I think it's more to it than that. And I think Ljungberg Camp made a very good comment that flashed up. That he said that I think those back-to-back Copa America runs ruined his legs, and it did seem for a while that Alexis Sanchez just always seemed to be constantly playing football all year round. It almost seemed like he never had a holiday. You know, we'd finish the league and he'd either be doing international stuff, Copa America stuff, this, that, or the other, coming straight back into pre-season and going off again. And maybe we've seen an example of a player that literally got himself puffed out of all of his steam and he's never been able to get it back. I don't know if that can actually happen to a person, like you just run yourself into the ground and that's it. But
Sure it can, man.
he did always seem to be busy with football all year round. And the other point I just wanted to make as well, which we were talking about the summer that he left. And, you know, it was like, well, we can't afford, you know, we don't want him and Ozil to leave. You know, at least somebody mentioned here that at the time, everybody was like, well, we can't have them both to leave. I may have been on my own then, because even back then I was like, get rid of them both. Really get rid of them both. And going back to Mesut Ozil, even if it was a case of we want Mesut to stay because we don't want to get rid of our two big marquee players in one window, the difference was with Alexis, he had other suitors. There were other people hovering around to get him on board. There was no one looking for the services of Mesut Ozil. There was no one. So how did we get into a situation where we offered a player almost 2.5 times what the salary that they were on, and nobody else even wanted them? You see what I'm getting at? If he was earning, say, 130, 140, 50 grand, I think it was 150 grand, and nobody else wanted him, how did we not strike up a deal for, say, 200 grand, 220? How did we get to 350? It just doesn't make any sense. We're paying for that now, big time.
Big
But I
time.
went off the track there a little bit about Alexis Sanchez.
Okay, I mean, well, this was not on the format to talk about, but I'm glad that we've gone down this road, and Lumbercamp was the catalyst. So thank you, Lumbercamp, in the comments section. It's another indication that our viewers are important to us, and we will talk about topics. But Mahir, I'm going to go to you first, and then Tony. You wanted to jump in?
I just wanted to say, and this is the reason, Stan, Rohan, Tony, Ray, this is the reason now why it's hard to get quality, because there's a player blocking up. Now, say for instance, we wanted Aubameyang to sign a new contract, right? Ozil is on this humongous amount of money. Now, I mean, somebody like Obo who's put in work, has now probably thought to himself for a long time, bloody hell, how is Ozil getting all this money, yet I've put in a million times more work than this guy, and they're not willing to pay me. So like that's why thoughts in his head now are like leave for Real Madrid, leave for Barcelona, where obviously they can give you the money because you're worth that amount of money. And yes, and not only that, it's blocking up other possible transfers of younger, more passionate players, more quality, such as Hassim or from Lyon, for example. I read we were linked to Kai Havertz for 90 mil, but where does Kai Havertz and the Madisons and the Grealishes and the Grealishes and the where do these players play? Awa, even from Lyon, they all play in that floating position that is there where Mesut is.
We're not going to call it that position. We're not going to call it the 10.
No, it's not the 10. It's not the 10. It's more of a floating role. To be honest with you guys, would you guys not agree with me? In today's time, a 10 does not exist. A 10 is not helpful in modern football. You would much rather have a midfield that is floating more about in that area, so we can get the best out of our wingers and our strikers.
Yeah, for sure.
Short and sweet.
Tony, I'm coming to you, but I just wanted to say something to Stan. We've come full circle in George Graham days where wages were so restrictive. And in our lifetime, we've gone to a situation where we pay premium, top dollar for Ozil, let's say. Just an observation. in our lifetime. We've gone from being the cheapest to probably paying our players some of the best wages out there, and we are not getting it on the field. Tony, did you have a point to make?
Yeah, continuing with what he was saying on also, he cost us keeping Ramsey because Ramsey was pissed off that we weren't up for the contract
Yeah.
earlier. Then he was pissed off that
So
Oswald
it,
was getting so gross of wages. And going
it's a
back to what,
whole cascading problem, which we were talking about Alexis Sanchez, and we were going to say we we wasted those 6 months. We didn't know about it at the time. He went to Manchester United in January, and we could have sold Alexis Sanchez for easily for 60 million plus to Manchester City. We missed the boat there. We missed the boat with Aaron Ramsey more recently, and
Instead, we got Mkhitaryan.
we've left over 100 million on the table in the last few seasons. That's a conservative value, right, Rohan?
Jack Wilshere.
Jack Wilshere, yeah, yeah. All of these indecisions that the club has made has cost the club real money. We've had to actually fork out more money on top of that in buying players such as Pepe.
It's very difficult to see this indecisiveness happening on one hand, but then on the other hand, be told we're a self-sustaining model. Well, if that's the case,
Yeah.
the self-sustaining part of it needs to be, we need to have more money to self-sustain with, and that means getting players out at the right time and not being beholden to these players who leave whenever they want, and we are then left scrabbling around trying to get a few pence from the nearest club that will offer anything. I mean, I don't understand why Roma offered to buy Mkhitaryan for 10 million euros, and we said no. What?
Because we're a joke. That's why, Stan.
Do we think
We're a
that
joke.
one, we're not going to get any more for him anywhere else, and two, what are they trying to tell us that there's a place back in the squad for him? What's going on?
You do hear some news headlines about Arteta wanting to have a look at Mkhitaryan, right?
What is he going to do with Mkhitaryan?
Scary stuff, But whoever decided not to sign Ziyech should be jailed. So there's serious question marks about Raul and Vinay for me as to the kind of business they are going to do in the next summer, in the next window.
Yeah. So on this whole thing of whether Alexis and Ozil were both to be sold, the season before Alexis left was when I think we had finished second, the Leicester season, where
Yep.
Ozil in half a season had 18 assists and stuff. So that is why he retained his superstar status. And that's the reason why we had to give him the money. In hindsight, it was a bullshit decision, which has cost us many-fold because of Ramsey leaving and, because other players want that sort of money and all of that. I
You
think
know what
that
annoys me, Rohan? You know what annoys me is when a player needs a contract, he plays out of his skin. Has anyone ever noticed
exactly.
that? When a
Which
player is
is
coming close to negotiating for the contract, they turn it on then.
why it has to be which is why it has to be performance based, right? It has to
Yeah.
be an average, and then you earn over that based off of incentives. That is how you will keep the performances up, and that is what is required. Why Sanchez failed at us at United is another question altogether. Their whole setup isn't great. The way they were playing with Mourinho and him, wanting to play their wingers effectively play fullbacks, right? So Alexis was never going to thrive there. I don't know why he went there. I think that if he would have gone to City, he would have continued his his form from what it was at Arsenal, and he
He
just
still
made
would have
that
been
wrong
loved.
choice. And again, whether somebody can run themselves into the ground, and I'm just seeing how many games he played for Arsenal just in the Premier League, right? In the 3.5 seasons that he played, this is just starts that I'm talking about. He had 35 starts in the first one, 30 in the second one, 38. He played all games in the
Every minute.
third one, and then 19 in the season that he left. So he didn't have that back issue that Ozil has. That he's just not going to play, right? Like he never did
Same with
that. He said that I'm going to turn up on
yeah,
that
Whole
pitch.
body issue. Whole body issue. One
That's
week
the
it's my
question.
toe, one week it's my middle finger.
Exactly,
Next
right?
thing it's
Like,
the eyebrow that's gone. That's
you know,
suddenly
and the biggest
up.
point that I have to
Bloody
my
hell, man.
favor is that Lumberg Camp has Lumberg in his name, and he still says that Alexis Sanchez is
Yeah,
better.
that's what I was also saw that. I was checking.
I was thinking that as well.
Guys, you know
Sanchez
what I'm
camp.
watching currently?
Well,
I'm
we should
currently watching.
Sanchez camp.
I'm currently watching all
camp.
Lumberg Camp
Alexis's 80
does not
goals.
Lumberg Camp does not have to justify his handle, his avatar.
Sanchez camp.
That
He's
is
in Sanchez camp.
that is 100% his own copyright. He can keep that. It's not a
Yeah,
problem.
exactly. Which is why I'm like, he is, when he says that, that means that that has weight. He can criticize that. It's like
Yeah,
I
Yo,
can say stuff about my family, but nobody else dare say it. So Lumberg can say that Sanchez is better than Lumberg. Nobody else has that right, right?
listen, I have to give him credit for putting that together because I would
that's
never have thought of
fantastic.
merging those two names together, and it's absolute class, in my opinion. I'm not just saying that; it's absolute class. Any final points on how badly the club's been run? Because we can go on and on. It's a whole other podcast in of itself. We'll get on to the next section then. Everyone happy to hold their
Where's the
silence?
ship? Has it been turned?
Guys, I'm currently watching Alexis's 80 goals on screen. My God, this guy used to tear teams apart. Ah,
Used to.
Just being
oh
honest.
my
Nice
days.
one, Lumberg Camp. We like that. Okay.
Yeah.
Most memorable games this season, and there hasn't been many. Uh, we can have some dishonorable mentions in here if you want as well. Let's talk about the reign of Unai Emery, which ended up until the Frankfurt defeat on the 28th of November of last year. Under Unai Emery, Mahir, highlights this season.
Please name me a few games because I tried myself looking through the lineup of games. I was
We had
under
up
because
until he was sacked, we had won 6 games.
I think he had wasn't there a game versus like a Newcastle or something where we beat him like
First,
5-0
first
or
two
4-0?
games, Newcastle, there was Burnley at home, a 2-1 win, which people look more fondly back at the Burnley game because of Danny Ceballos.
Yeah.
But it was a bit of a tough
And
game.
Guendouzi.
Bit of a tough game, right, Tony?
I thought him and Guendouzi did real good in that game.
Guendouzi, yeah. But
Yeah, I was running.
Aubameyang pulled out a world-class goal, and if Messi had done the same thing, we would be still talking about. I'll start off. For me, I think it was a real helter-skelter game. This game changed a lot of people's opinion on Unai Emery. A 3-2 win over Aston Villa, capped by a fantastic free kick from Aubameyang. So that was a high point for me in Unai Emery's reign. I mean, we did quite well. It was quite funny, actually, Maher. We did quite well in the Europa League group stages, but we tended to struggle in the league under Unai Emery.
Yeah, I mean going through to a final and having a chance for us to recruit world class players by being able to go into the Champions League and then bottling it like that versus those guys just from down the road on the other side. Yeah, good times.
Um, bad games under Unai Emery for me. Maybe the Watford game away from home was woeful.
Mm.
I'm nervous. How crap have we become to be 2-0 up and not close the game out? And I can see that the clock's already ticking in Stan's mind right now. So we're churning back through some bad memories here under Unai Emery.
Quite
Before
painful.
Dan will get into Lumberg Camp. The only good game I can remember this season was against Man United, and they played like Akron and Stanley. And we were thankful to VAR for getting that goal with Aubameyang. Stan,
The thing is with Unai Emery, right? I kind of blocked most of it out because when I do sort of like ask my brain to bring up Unai Emery, the first thing that pops into my head is the Europa League final. And then I just think, okay, I've had enough of that, and I start thinking about something else. So that's as far as I get. But if I'm going to
Sorry,
look at
Stan, I'm the same. I'm exactly the same. That's why I brought it up so quickly.
if I'm going to look for the positive, the only positive that I could ever bring up under Unai Emery was 4-2 Tottenham, and that's only because I was there as well. It was like a birthday treat for my 50th.
Wow.
The rest of it was rubbish. The rest of it
And
was
that
just
too
rubbish.
was last season, actually.
yeah,
Yeah.
I was saying this season, Stan. Anything good this season?
No, not under Unai Emery. Sorry, none. So moving on then, the highlight for me, I mean, Freddie was a bit of a limbo period, right? I can't really count Freddie either because we were kind of like in the middle of, we were neither one nor the other really. And the highlight for me the whole season, the highlight for me was Gabriel Martinelli's goal against Chelsea. For me, that's my biggest highlight. But I'm one of these people that I'm not very good at recalling. Oh yeah, that's such and such a game, and we played them away, and it was such and such a score, and such scored in the first minute, and then such and such. I'm not really one of them. I remember stuff that I don't need to remember for some reason. Stuff that I shouldn't remember. Stuff that I don't want to remember. So I'm going to go with the Martinelli, the Chelsea game. Yeah, and I did like also. I did like Pepe's 2 free kicks in the Europa League as well.
Yeah, yeah.
That was pretty nice. And also Carlo Ancelotti's staring face when we played Everton was a highlight for the season for me. When the camera just went onto him and he was just sat there staring off like he was trying to time travel. That was just fantastic.
Rohan, highs and lows under Unai Emery, Rohan.
I think biggest high was when we played Real Madrid in the friendlies, and that's only because I was there. you know, we actually went two goals up in that game because Nacho got sent off in the first 10 minutes, and then we conceded two. We were absolutely battered in the second half. We lost on penalties, but in competitive games, I think the only one that I really think was good, and this has nothing to do with Emery in hindsight, is that Burnley game, because I tweeted after that Burnley game that what a performance by Ceballos in that game. He just looked like a young Fabregas, right? He was closing people down. He was, running rings around people. He was dribbling. He was passing. He created chances. All of that. So, that was definitely one. For real. That was one great game that we played. Since then, it's been like a bunch of lows. Just the game after that was the Liverpool game in which we got battered by the crosses. I don't know, for some reason we played so narrow and we got they had I don't know how many crosses in the box, and it's like giving, they had two Kevin De Bruyne's on either side, and we just kept giving them the ball that whip it in, and every time it was like squeaky bum time, right? So
squeaky bum time.
it was, I generally thought either somebody is going to tap it in or our defenders would push it in. Luckily for us, everybody missed that ball, so we lost 3-1. The other game, and which I think was the best game of the season that we've played, is the Manchester United game, and I said that was a dominant performance. That was the first game of this year, of this decade, actually. I remember,
it was on New Year's.
Was that the one where Pepe put the inside of the post and it come out?
Correct. Yes. And we actually battered them. The first half was so great, and the only regret that I have from that is that there've been a couple of times in the past few seasons that we've put United to the sword, and we put this one Chelsea to the sword, but we've not made it like a cricket
We
score.
haven't
Someday
capitalized.
we have to take that revenge for our 8-2s and the 6-0s. And I thought that we could do it. We managed the game well. We won 2-0 or something like that, and that was a great game. So yeah, that's
Yeah.
been sort of the highlights of the thing for
Yeah, I
me,
still
and too
remember
many lows to mention really.
the that, and yeah, I'm going to get to Tony before you're all doubling around through the season. I was going to go Emery, Lumberg, and Arteta, but that's fine. I can double back.
Because Ljungberg is a blur. There was nothing. He won one game. I
Well,
don't
you have,
even remember which game it was.
you have to give your
Emery's.
highlights of the Lundberg era, whether it's slinging someone's hook or not. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
When he told,
And
who
then
did he tell to sling their hook? And was it Guendouzi? He pulled him off in the Norwich game
Yeah,
when Guendouzi was acting like he's all that, right?
yeah. He
And he
wanted
also called out.
yeah. He wanted to take him off, didn't he? He was looking across, going like, "Me? Excuse me?
Me.
You take me off?
And
Do you
I have
yeah,
know
to,
who I am? I'm
Vieira
Gwen-
reincarnate.
Yeah, I
I have
remember.
I have to call out my hero as well. He's. Do you have a tear in your eye looking at Alexi videos now?
How did you know, man? Just leave me alone. No, me.
Because you weren't looking at the camera. I knew.
Here's a North London derby goal that he just scored now. Look, just leave me alone.
Yeah,
Switch
I'll
my
leave you alone.
camera
He's
quickly.
scoring in big games, man. Chelsea against Chelsea in the FA Cup final,
Yeah, I mean,
against
he
Man
was
City in
a
the
Can't.
semi-final.
big
Like,
game player. Not to make this all about Alexis Sanchez. Okay,
yeah,
Tony. Tony, Emery-Ljungberg Arteta.
For me, under Emery, it was the Burnley game in the league. Then we looked sharp in all the Europa games.
Yeah. Any down periods in the Emery tenure? I know there was a lot of good times, no bad ones, right?
absolutely none.
We
Not
peaked.
showing up at all under him.
Imagine we peaked in preseason under Unai Emery. We won our first two games, Newcastle away from home and Burnley at home, and we were rubbing our heads together. That's it. We're going to do well this season, and we only have four more wins throughout Emery until the end of November. Um, Tony, anything under Lumberg that you remember?
And there's a lot of draws. He's helping us get our draw record.
Yeah, yeah. We drew away to Norwich, and we actually drew against Liège, and Everton was the last game we drew in. Okay, so I've talked about Emery now. I'm going to talk about Lundberg. What I really liked was that 10 minute flash of where we turned it on and we scored three goals against West Ham under Freddie Lundberg. I liked his approach as well and his style. You know, if Guendouzi wasn't performing, he was getting slinger hook. You're coming off Guendouzi, and the way he called out Mesut Ozil as well. You know, which was somewhat in the same fashion that Unai Emery used to call out Mesut Ozil. Um, so that's the highs and lows under Freddie Lundberg. We obviously lost a couple of bad games to Manchester City game. There was no way we were going to win that game, right? But we had a very bad defeat against Brighton, 2-1 at home, and you just started questioning the players at that point. Did they have the mentality? But then Arteta came, and like you all said, that Manchester United win at home was a very good win. Now I remember talking to Hopes about that when he was on, and Hopes analyzes everything, but we pretty much played very well in the first half, and we held on in the second half because we were not ready to play at the time the way Arteta wanted us to play. But I think, like Rohan said, we did control that game very, very well. We got our 2 goals. Pepe was a big, big factor in that game. Terrorized them, and that's a high point for me. Um, a low point for me under Arteta was that Burnley game, 0-0 away from home. It was just really a strange selection where we tried to shoehorn. Who did we shoehorn? We tried to shoehorn Lacazette into that team, and we played Martinelli on the right hand side, which did not work for me at all away from home. Aubameyang had a rare day where he couldn't score from 3 decent chances that was presented to him away to Burnley, and then purely, as Stan said, the Ancelotti factor with the eyebrow. Uh, very, very good game against Everton, where it showed our clinical finishing with Aubameyang. Fantastic goal played through by David Luiz, and he just finished that off like Thierry Henry would have. It was very Henry-esque, and the headed goal as well. Aubameyang, for some reason, has scored more goals under Arteta in 14 games by his head than he has done in his whole career. So for me, those are high points and low points. Obviously, the low points under Arteta is the Olympiacos game, where all of the Gooner Nation went to make a cup of tea, and before we knew it, we were out. I think, hand on heart, I'm going to say I thought we had that game won, and
Yeah.
unforgivable to lose goals in that fashion, and that's something that needs to be addressed.
But do you remember what happened at the end of the game? And I'm talking after the final whistle.
No,
Because so
because I was
so
so pissed off.
we scored at the end, like the 118th minute or something. Aubameyang scored, then they scored, they got
Straight away.
away, and then he got a chance which he missed, like
That's
from
right.
5 yards out.
Yeah.
And then after that, his reaction was he was the last person on that pitch, and he was almost in tears, and basically he was lying down on that pitch. And you know, that's another perspective of how elite players handle the situation, and he took it all on himself as to what that he cost the game, which wasn't really the case. So that was really, you felt that.
On any other day, that goal that he scored, that's your match-winning goal. On any other day,
And he would score that from 5 yards out, that one 9 out of 10 times. He just somehow missed it, after that, when he got the chance in the last seconds. So yeah.
Troy, I really like the avatar with the covered up mask there on the avatar, on the emoji. Nice one. Glenn wants the bottom row to wear some Arsenal jerseys. Put some respect on those jerseys, people.
Yeah.
Best of Ljungberg versus West Ham away. Best of Arteta versus United home. Best of Emery was when he left.
yeah,
Nice
Yeah, we
one,
love
man.
it.
I agree with that.
Comment of the day so far. So, so let's remember, although we're out of Europe, I think sometimes we forget we're still in the FA Cup, right? We have a Sheffield United away from home. So there's still some life in the season, but will the season continue? We do not know.
Can I bring up a subject while we're here, because it's something
Sure.
that's quite current, and
We're going to go into freestyle now, and that's perfect.
I just wanted to mention that obviously over the last week, it's come to light that Jose Mourinho decided to take the lads down the park for a little bit of keeping up, when they should have been social distancing. So, I mean, I'm of the opinion that the government should be levying quite a hefty fine at Tottenham, as would happen to a member of the public. If a member of the public was out having a barbecue in the park, if us got all met up for a barbecue and the police came by, I'm sure there'd be fines would be issued, right? So if they're all down the park playing keepy up, one, they should be given a fine, by the government for breaking the rules, but I also feel that the FA should also be making an example of them for their flagrant, disobeyal of the rules, and they should be given a points deduction. I don't know how anybody else feels about that, but I mean, surely they should, to set an example. We've got all this stuff about, wash your hands, stay home, 2 meters apart, blah 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 blah, and they go off down the park like it's nobody's business. There should be some kind of a punishment, one from the government and one from the FA. And I'd probably feel the same if it was Arsenal as well. If Arsenal done this and someone had a conversation with me about this, I would say to them, you know what, it's very hard to disagree with you. I just wondered what the rest of the panel thought and people in the chat box as well.
Well, you went in for the old 1-2 there, Stan. You hit him in the gut and then give him an uppercut with the point as well.
Oh yeah.
Finish the job, man. Finish the job.
You
Ain't fucking around.
have something against Tottenham.
Bunch of Arsenal fans talking about points deduction to Tottenham. I mean, we want to give them a points deduction just for existing. So this is like a grave offense.
I think Stan makes a good point.
No, definitely.
Had an example, right, Rohan?
These guys are public figures. They, kids follow them. People follow them. And they should be an example to the society. And this is not just in their personal capacity that they've done this, right? This is not a Kyle Walker calling hookers or like or Jack Grealish.
Yes.
Jack Grealish going drinking, so
Crushing his car.
And,
I mean,
and-
they didn't go to the training pitch at the ground. They just went to the nearest park, apparently.
Yeah.
Jack Grealish. He's going to be one of ours soon.
yeah,
I mean,
so-
I hope so.
did Jose have a minibus and pick them all up? Pick them up, get in, take them down the park. How was this all organized? How was this all organized? Or did he get the name of the park and they all drove there individually? I mean, I need details.
yeah, exactly, right. So yeah, definitely. I mean, I think they should be given a hefty fine, and just because this was an act not just by individuals. That's the point I was trying to make, that it wasn't an act by individuals but by the club itself. Either they should clearly deal with it or seriously deal with it themselves, or the Premier League needs to come in and give them a point deduction or something like that. Agree with Stan.
Tony, if you need to duck out, we understand. If you guys
fine.
some things, you good? Okay. Yeah, no, I think there's definitely a responsibility on public figures such as those lost down the road, and they should definitely be more responsible, But it is Mourinho and it is Tottenham. It's a powerful concoction.
Yeah, right. I mean, these are FA's, golden boys, right? It's Harry Kane team. They aren't getting any deduction, right? They probably.
If witches were going to put a powerful spell together, it would be a Tottenham and a Mourinho together in some kind of a boiling pot.
I mean, if you think I'm being a bit harsh, maybe a double whammy of a fine and a points deduction, maybe some will think that is harsh. But I mean, I'd even settle that they're allowed to walk. The whole team has to march through every town, and then everyone's allowed to come out onto their doorstep and kick every one of them up the arse as they go by.
Shame.
Yeah.
Shame.
Yeah. I want to kick them up the arse though as well.
Starting with the captain, right?
Oh, man. Yeah.
Starting with the captain.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, no, definitely. That's a good point, Stan. Anyone else got other freestyle points to talk about? Because I have one if you don't.
Go for it.
Mikel Arteta has been sending Emery-style PowerPoints to all of his players to improve them when they do come back. Do you think it will work?
It better work.
I'm thinking Mustafi.
Well, it can't hurt, can it? It can't hurt. It's just, I think it's just about keeping busy, right? And we're still on the payroll. You know, we can't just, well, we can't all just sit around playing Fortnite. Some of us can, but not all of us, right? So it's about just keeping busy, I think. Some
Dan,
players it might resonate with more.
what do
Other
you think the
players, it
PowerPoints
could
are
be
saying,
good for
Dan?
them.
What do you think the PowerPoints are saying to individual? Like, pick a player and put a caption over him.
I think Mustafi probably just says fix up.
Fix up, brother. We had a long chat at the Dubai camp, right?
I think the Pepe one just says, remember, you do have a right foot.
Remember, you can pass, Pepe,
Yeah.
and you will score more than Laka, right, Tony?
Nope.
Generally, it should just go out to the whole team, and it's like, please try not to be shit. Like,
Yeah,
that's what it's say. And
like like a
special
mid-season
one,
report card. Can do better.
yeah, and special one to Aubameyang, which will be signed saying, please stay.
Please stay.
Yeah. Probably one to Leno with a big love heart on it, and it just says underneath, thanks.
Yeah. Everybody is getting a salary deduction, and that charity money will also go to Leno for saving
Yeah.
us this season. He's also in the lines.
Remember,
He's a key worker.
Ken, these players are too comfortable. They'll never be good enough. The players, I think half of this team can be moved on. I think there's some players that are coachable, and it's up to Mikel Arteta to do it. It's up to, like we said already, Unai Emery and Vinay to move those on that are not going to be good enough, and to finally bring in some decent players, right?
I could never get that. We have seen partnerships of Huth and Morgan win the championship. We've seen, Dunk and some other guy, and we've seen all of these teams do really well when defending. I think because you have to defend as a pack, and it's a team thing, and it can be grilled into you, is the easier part of the game, and for some reason we just can't do it. And one thing that 89 documentary really showed was that they said that we worked on corners more than anybody else.
Constantly.
Do we do that? Do we practice our defending as much as we do our attacking? That's the question. Do we take it as seriously? Is it a do or die situation? Because changing the mentality, I think it can be done, right? The mentality and the mentality was good, but back when Wenger came in, but the attitude was bad, and he changed it, right? We need our Mars bars back. From those days, he changed it to like a fish diet, that thing. So why can't somebody else do it? Who's been given that power?
Very good. Well, listen, we're going to get out of here. I think we've been online longer than I expected, right? I didn't expect this to go on this long. Been a great debate, great comments. It started off a little bit slow, but we actually warmed up into it, right, Tony? And got
Yeah.
going mid-pace. And hey, we'll be back on Sunday, and we'll have more content for you all. I hope you enjoyed it. Just want to give a shout out to Wax Online. Go check him out. I think he's got his own YouTube as well. But for now, we're out of here. Everybody, this is our public announcement here. Keep up the social distancing. It's working. Somebody said in the media, doctors can save so many people, but by you staying at home, you can save many, many thousands. And I'm not just saying that, it's real. One person can create a chain which just goes on and on and on. And we need to do the best we can, right, everyone?
Of course.
Yep.
All right.
I just want to say one thing.
Yeah.
Much love to you all. Stan the man, Rohan, Tony, our host, and yours truly have all been in the building for almost 2 hours. I mean, fantastic, guys. Much
Yeah,
love.
like I said, happy Easter to everyone who's celebrating, and have a great Good Friday as well. Like I said, didn't think it would go on this long. I'm not cutting it off because I want to, but because it's time to cut it off. Save more content on Sunday, right, Tony? Uh,
Yep. I always got
Later
more to
this
say.
Sunday, we're gonna do anagrams as well, and we're gonna do Stan's suggestion, which was Stan.
We're gonna do. Last week we done an all-time Arsenal 11. The week before that, it was a current best 11 from the current squad. So I had a word with Ryan and said, why don't we do a all-time worst 11? So I just wanted to, are we going to look at, is it going to be things like players that we felt were the worst player in that position? Or are we going to count maybe players that we signed and we never saw them play? Do they count? If you never saw, some players.
So
No,
no,
I think you have to have seen them play at least one game.
Okay, we'll find out. We'll work out what the rules are beforehand. But
Which player were you thinking about, Stan?
so no go.
Park. Look at Park. You mean
Park, yeah.
Kaiser.
would you put Park into an all-time worst Arsenal 11? Because I never saw hardly.
No, I never saw him play, so I don't think you can do
I
that.
haven't really seen him
Okay.
play though.
All right.
He was the best player who never played.
Yeah.
We need 11 of those, right? We don't need 11 of those now. Listen, to everybody who's watching on playback, come and see us on Sunday as well. We're going to have a show for you then. Worst 11 is going to be epic. The Ljungberg camp.
Woo.
Yeah.
It's gonna be epic.
I want to hear the chat box's suggestions as we play that one along as well. So we'll all do it together.
Dan, minimum 20 games. I don't know if I can do that, Ljungberg camp. I go. Noe, Wax, Ljungberg camp, everyone watching on playback, be safe out there. Thanks for coming in. And up the Arsenal, come on, you Gooners. And the dog says goodbye to you, right, Tony?
Yep.
We're out of here.